Hi, it's Don McLaughlin from Falcon Discovery here at Legal Tech 2013. I'm pleased to introduce John Martin from Beyond Recognition. Good to see you, John.
Hey, good to see you. How's it going?
Good. Listen, you've obviously had lots of experience over the years in all things legal, and in particular electronic discovery. And how many years do you go back in your history in the industry?
I hate to say this, somewhere between 22 and 25. I originally started Advocate Technologies in 1992. So, and had done support in the DOS and Novell world for summation and concordance back pre-Windows. So pretty long time.
Well, that's some in-depth experience for sure, and legal tech is obviously a focus on technology, and clearly technology has been the source of challenges in the legal field with respect to identifying information. What do you see going into 2013 that you all are doing at Beyond Recognition that really changes and improves the way technology can help address those very problems that technology has created?
Well, what we believe at Beyond Recognition, the reason we built the BR engine, as we call it, is what's really been lost in electronic data, or big data, as some people like to call it now, is the concept of a document type. A lot of people, if you ask them, what's a document type these days, they'll say Word document or Excel or PowerPoint, whereas we look at it like manifest and invoice. So what we did was we created an engine that, with zero upfront programming and no human intervention whatsoever, can look at millions or billions of documents and automatically cluster them together into a classification. We think that's a very fundamental problem everybody has.
And what is that classification based on that's different from other solutions that you see out there in legal technology?
Pretty much everybody else's solution is based on the analysis of text. They use different parsing methods to achieve a varying degree of result, but there's always an error rate. So what happens is you wind up with certain things you can classify and certain things you can't classify. In text processing systems and legal, like predictive coding, you run into PowerPoint presentations don't classify well because they tend to be lists of nouns. Spreadsheets, forms, CAD drawings, pictures, maps, those kind of things. So what we do is we do it based on a glyph, which is just a fancy word for a picture. On the average page, we have 1,500 glyphs, or points of comparison. What that means is that since we recognize the glyph as a picture, we have 1,500 points of comparison per page, which for document classification makes us about 10 times more accurate than facial recognition.
That's incredible. And your approach to this problem of information identification, essentially, stems from what? Your experience on a particular complex case or challenge, and that's really the origin of Beyond Recognition?
Yes, we've had several projects. We had one really massive one in the energy space where we went through and classified 25 years worth of scanning. Some had, it was a mix of TIFF and PDF. There was no document delineation, so you wouldn't know where a document stopped or started. And at the time we did it, some of the pages when they were scanned 25 years ago were 60 years old. So we had about a 90-year time frame, and there's really no alternative other than human to go against that. And people do offshoring, they write coding manuals, etc. So we got asked to look at it, And we built the Beyond Recognition engine to accommodate that kind of nightmare scenario. And since we had a whole lot of data to work with, we got really, really good at how to identify things graphically.
Got it. And so, is it essentially at the end of the day, with a volume like that and such a mix of different types of documents, is the engine really clustering those items in a way that you don't see other technologies doing out there?
Absolutely. Beyond Recognition, because it's graphical, we don't have any of the inherent limitations of text. So, for instance, we don't get confused by file type. We don't really care if the document we're looking at was a scanned piece of paper as a TIFF or a PDF or a Word document or a Pages document in Mac. If it looks the same, it's the same.
Got it. Okay, great. And would you say then that you're grappling with and tackling with Beyond Recognition's technology more just the broader problem of information management as opposed to litigation or discovery in particular? Exactly.
If you can fix the, as people call the big data problem at the source, at the corporate level, then savings flows from there. If generally we'll get anywhere between a 90 to a 99+% reduction, simply because one project we were doing last year, we had 1.7 million documents, primarily all CAD, CAM, spreadsheets, forms, and when we clustered that set of data, it reduced from 1.7 million, if you think about it like objects, from 1.7 million document objects down to 1,217 clusters. So once we pass that information to the review tool, the attorneys are able to go through and simply look at a doc type. When they see that doc type, they know, okay, I'm looking at invoices, or I'm looking at meeting minutes, or I'm looking at whatever. They're able to decide instantly for all the members of that cluster, which could be 2 documents, we cluster all the way down to 2, and it could be 20,000 documents, that it's either relevant or irrelevant to the purpose they're there for. So at the end of the day, they can, in that particular case, they went from 1,217 objects to 57 that mattered.
So, wow, that's down to 57. In a way that it seems to be hearkening back to, and you and I talked about this a little bit, going back to having material organized in a way that historically you might see in a filing room with filing cabinets that are clearly labeled, such that in a matter or frankly in the course of organizing and classifying records inside a company, you then quickly with those clusters, you now know what's on the outside of those filing cabinets. You've taken all that electronic data and put it into essentially filing cabinets that people can quickly understand, okay, are invoices relevant? Are environmental documents relevant? Is that essentially what you're describing?
Yes, exactly. As we were saying earlier, back in the day, if a lawyer had a wrongful termination case, he would go to the client, they would go to the file room, and they see boxes on the shelf. And the first box they look at says invoices. What do? They'd never look at it. They go to the next box because somebody's already clustered it for them, and they know invoices have nothing to do with wrongful termination.
Well, and the challenge and the $64,000 question with respect to electronic data is none of the data is organized. It lives everywhere, and that is fascinating. Well, heady stuff, and kudos to you all at Beyond Recognition. I've got to ask you on a more lighthearted note, what is perhaps the funniest thing you've seen or heard at Legal Tech New York?
The funniest thing that I have seen at Legal Tech was a few years back where I overheard a conversation where
those are the best conversations.
Yeah, those. I'm sure I've been the victim of this too.
Right.
Because I've had some doozies. Yep. But basically, the quote was that we can't do it that way because it takes up too much room in the database.
and for a tech guy like you, that's hilarious, right?
Right. Well, probably tied for first is a young guy who had been working in e-discovery maybe a year or two, and he was sitting at the day before setting up, and he was having some computer problems, and he had his head down on his desk, and a fellow walked by and said, "Hey, are you okay?" And he looked up and said, "The reason I work here is because the stress keeps me warm."
I love that. Love that. Well, I think it's that's pretty apropos, and it's a pleasure talking with you, John. Best of luck. Thank you.
Great. Thanks a lot. Appreciate it.